ユージ、
ん
とにかく一人でも多く助けてやれ。お前は大勢に囲まれて死ね。俺みたいになるなよ。
What is Yuji? Who is Yuji? Why is Yuji Yuji? Yuji is one of the most engrossing characters ever created in JJK. For such a simple character on the surface, Gege does such a wonderful job of fleshing out Yuji's characteristics over the course of the story. Between his philosophies on life and death, roles and purpose, his cog mentality, his beef with Sukuna, and many, many more. All of these are what shape Yuji, but unfortunately, thanks to the nature of his role in the story, he's overshadowed by other characters such as Gojo, Sukuna, or even Yuta, which means a lot of those aspects go unnoticed by a lot of people who engage with the series. So, as with every video like this that I've done, I will give a comprehensive look at Yuji's character, delving into things said previously, and hopefully give you all a better understanding of how I personally view Yuji. Disclaimer, this video will not cover Modulo, just the original series. So if you're an anime only or haven't caught up on the manga, I suggest you click off this video so as to not get spoiled. Besides that, I hope you can stick with me during this video as I provide insight into one of the most beloved characters in JJK. And as per usual, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any thoughts, make sure to leave them down below. I am willing to read any comment I get, as I love to have discussions on these topics. Also, as an aside, Season 3 of the anime is incredible, phenomenal, exceptional, outstanding, fucking peak. But anyway, with that being said, let's explore the character of Yuji, an imperfect, superhuman kid who not only changes the world around him, but himself as well. Spoilers for the entire manga. First, let's start with something that Yuji was well known for at the start of the series: saving people and giving them proper deaths. This motivation, specifically saving people, was instilled in him by his dying grandfather, his last wishes to Yuji before he died, a philosophy that stuck with Yuji, which shortly after morphed into Yuji's viewpoint of giving people proper deaths. But let's look at this philosophy a bit more. Throughout the early parts of the story, Yuji wants people to die a proper death. So, in a way, is he not imparting his ideals onto other people, much like Sukuna? Now, that may seem like a stretch, but hear me out. We have to remember that the story of JJK plays on the idea of roles, as explained to us in the Shinjuku arc. The reason why Yuji loads Sukuna in this moment is because Sukuna forces his ideals onto other people that he deems lesser, humans basically. He only views them as tools to be used by him, a deity-like being, essentially taking away their freedom in having their own ideals, reducing these people with their own thoughts and feelings to nothing more than objects to be used by him. And Yuji hates Sukuna for that, because he was just like him, imparting his ideals onto other people, and got upset when those ideals were challenged over and over again. So, in a sense, Sukuna was the dark reflection of Yuji at that time. But the key difference is that Yuji is still a kid. He's 15 years old, so naturally, his view of the world was oblivious and naive, unlike Sukuna, a 1,000-year-old sorcerer, who understands how the world functions, yet still chooses to force his beliefs onto others. Yuji wants and tries to make the people around him die a proper death, but he is often reality checked, showing him that that ideal means nothing in this cruel world. But here's the thing, reality is also Yuji's greatest teacher, and what made him the man he is now. The best example I can point towards that shows how far Yuji has come as not just a character but a person is his talk with Megami during Shinjuku, just before Sukuna's defeat. Yuji does not tell or force Megami to come back to him and his friends. He instead tells Megami that it will be lonely without him, in a way giving Megami a choice, something that he seldom experiences, because think about it, when was the last time Megami really had a choice? He was sold to the Zain clan as a kid by his dad, he has all of these expectations by the strongest and us the audience, thanks to his curse technique. His sister was forcibly used for Kenjaku's cutting games, and his body was taken over by Sukuna, and in this moment, he is granted a choice, to die here, sad and alone, or to come back to his friends, in which he chooses the latter, and what leads to Sukuna's defeat. I won't go too much in depth with Megami, as he can be saved for his own video, but this interaction is honestly one of the most beautiful things I have witnessed in the story. Megami finally being allowed to choose for himself, instead of external forces influencing everything in his life. It's nice, isn't it? But back to Yuji. As I've said, reality is Yuji's biggest enemy and comrade. Mahito screams to Yuji that this isn't a fantasy where everyone walks away happily ever after. And coming from Mahito, the curse born of the hatred between humans, he's absolutely right. This world isn't sunshine and rainbows. The knight doesn't slay the dragon and go back happily ever after. This is the grim truth of JJK's world, similar to our own. But in a cruel, twisted, ironic way, Mahito gave Yuji one of the biggest life lessons he could ever have. To stop viewing the world as if everything will always go your way. Something that the universe has been teaching him since day one, but he refused to accept it, and it's also told to him in the cruelest way possible. So let's continue with Yuji and Mahito, and talk about Yuji's cog mentality. This mentality began after his fight with Mahito. He believes himself nothing more than a cog in a machine, or in this case, system, where the only thing he should be doing is killing curses without a second thought, mirroring Mahito killing humans without a second thought. This mindset is later carried on throughout the entirety of the Culling games, until Shinjuku begins. The thing is though, I view this mentality as Yuji's emotional defense mechanism. Now, what do I mean by this? Throughout the story, Yuji's ideals of saving people and giving them proper deaths was slowly being destroyed by reality, time and time again. He lost Junpei, Nanami, Nobara, and blames himself. Oh gosh, if you know, you know. And blames himself for what Sukuna did. He can't accept his beliefs being challenged. And what does he do? He avoids them. He avoids them by not having to think about them. He tells himself that he's a cog. A cog that doesn't have to think, just act. He doesn't want to face the fact that his ideals are flawed, which is what leads him to adopt his cog mentality, and is justified in his eyes, knowing how cruel the world is. And it's not until one of his best friends gets taken over by the person he hates the most where that mentality starts to shatter. Now, let's delve a bit into Yuji's relationship with strength. As we know, one of the central themes of JJK is individualism versus corporation. Corporation can be best seen in Yuji himself, as he relies on others for his strength, unlike someone like Sukuna who only relies on himself. Now, in my Sukuna video, I implied that corporation was the better path to power than individualism. But I'd like to say here that that's not entirely correct. Corporation isn't any better than individualism. Both are important. The real reason as to why Sukuna was defeated from a narrative standpoint was because he wasn't true to himself, in my opinion. What do I mean by this? Well, in the world of JJK, those who stay true to themselves are more favored than those who don't. One great example that I can use is Mei Mei. Mei Mei, as we know, does not hide the fact that she's selfish, greedy, and probably a too. That's who she is, and she knows it, and she is rewarded for it. At no point in the story does she ever have to suffer the consequences of her actions in any way, because in this world, those who stay true to themselves are the ones who benefit the most. Compare this to other characters who suffered. Toji died thanks to his pride and ego getting in the way of his fight with Gojo, when he very easily could have ran away. Nanami dies as he can't decide what his purpose is. Mahito is killed after showing just how much of a coward he really is. Gojo died because no one could understand him, not even himself, and many more examples that I can use. And what's the common theme here? That these characters do not stay true to themselves. Now, you may be asking, doesn't Sukuna stay true to himself? Which is partially correct, but what Sukuna says in the final chapter of the series contradicts that mindset. He realizes that he had two paths he could have gone down, but instead went down the third path of cursing the world that had previously cursed him as revenge. Even Mahito makes this clear, as he is the dark mirror of humanity, so he understands Sukuna on a fundamental level, saying that he lied to not just others but himself about who he truly was. That is what led to Sukuna's defeat. Sukuna made us believe, and himself, that he was truly hedonistic and didn't care about anything, which couldn't have been further from the truth. That distinction is what led to his defeat by Yuji, someone who went through major growth to understand who he is. And speaking ever more about Yuji and Sukuna, how about we talk about Yuji's conversation with Sukuna in the domain? I know I'm jumping between topics, but there's just so much rich material to pull from Yuji and his interactions. This chapter, in my opinion, is one of the best chapters in the entire series. There's no huge fight or any awesome moments, it's just two people talking. But what this conversation entails says so much about the two, but especially Yuji. Yuji starts off by talking about very mundane things he used to do in his life as he was growing up, such as catching crayfish, going to stores, watching horses, etc. Talking about these things wasn't done without purpose by Yuji, something Sukuna quickly catches on to. Yuji's entire conversation with Sukuna was to show him the beauty of life, even for the most inconsequential things. Considering Sukuna, despite his appearance and mannerisms, is still human, Yuji wanted to see if Sukuna would truly understand the value of human life, seeing if his heart could change. This is something Sukuna quickly shuts down, implying that he cannot change, no matter what Yuji tries. And it brings up a very important aspect between the two in how they are brought up. Yuji lived a normal life like everyone else. He had a family, mostly in his grandpa, went to places, and more. But Sukuna never had that. If you've watched my video on Sukuna, you would know that he was born into a very unfortunate life, having to do all manner of things just to survive. This life that he lived is why he's the way he is now, a product of his environment. And it brings up a good question. What if the roles were reversed? What if Yuji was in Sukuna's position and vice versa? Would Yuji have turned out the same way? Yuji's conversation with Sukuna was to give a clear contrast between the two, the result of two different environments. It's why Yuji loathes Sukuna in this very moment, as Sukuna has such a purposefully ignorant, narrow-minded view of the world around him, boiling everything down to tools only to be used by him, whilst Yuji now understands the true wonder and splendor of life, thanks to his growth and maturity. His experiences shaped him to having a clearer understanding of the world he occupies. It's cruel, it's heartless, it's unforgiving. Yet, even with all of these terrible things, Yuji still remains himself, a compassionate person who wishes to do good in such an uncaring world. It's honestly inspiring. He understands the harsh reality of the world, but still chooses to be himself. He's matured, and that growth has allowed him to be surrounded by his closest friends, just like his grandfather told him all the way back at the start of this journey.
お前は強いから人を助けろ。手の届く範囲でいい。救える奴は救っとけ。迷ってもいい。感謝されなくても気にするな。とにかく一人でも多く助けてやれ。お前は大勢に囲まれて死ね。俺みたいになるなよ。
Yuji never really connected to me in Season 1. He felt very typical. There was nothing that I could latch on to. Until Season 2, or Shibuya, where I believe Gege really began to hit his stride with Yuji, fleshing him out more and more as the story went on, and the world around him changed, giving us a different but fundamentally the same Yuji. I mean, compare Yuji from the last arc to start of series Yuji, and it's like night and day. And I think what makes his development so great is that, to me, it feels very natural. I can't explain it, but his change, his growth and maturity all feel so real. Mostly because of his ever-growing viewpoint, no? I view Yuji's story, ultimately, as a coming-of-age story. A youth who experiences circumstances, allowing them to grow and mature over the course of the story, with a fresh perspective and mindset of the world they inhabit. This video was supposed to come out a long time ago, but as you can see, the last video I released was around 7 months ago. This is just because I have been very busy due to external factors and could never really get a chance to work on these videos. I am not done with YouTube. I plan to continue making videos for the foreseeable future. If anything, my next video will be a gaming related one, specifically Dark Souls 3. So prepare yourself for that. Anyways, with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video that I have made, and also hope that you look forward to my future videos. Alright, with that being said, take care, and I hope to see y'all next time. Peace.